Hey everybody, welcome back to Hank the Cowdog, Book 1, The Original Adventures of Hank the Cowdog. Today we're reading Chapter 10, Aged Mutton. Must have been a couple of days later that I was sitting on the edge of the catwalk, sunning myself and looking off in the distance. I'd been there maybe most of the day, thinking about things and enjoying the peace and quiet. The coyote village was awfully noisy. Seemed that somebody was always in the midst of a squabble. When a husband and wife had a difference of opinion, they just by George had a knockdown, drag-out fight. And right there in the front of everybody. Nobody ever seemed to get hurt in these brawls, and I guess they managed to solve their problem, but I could never get used to the noise of it. And the hair? Let me tell you, after one of them family fights, the air was full of fur. A guy could hardly breathe for the hair. And then there were the kids. There must have been 10 or 12 pups in the village, and let me tell you about coyote pups. Now, a dog is a cute kind of a pup, but I'm not real fond of babies, understand. But even I have to admit that a little old cowdog pup is pretty cute. He'll be fat as a butterball covered with silky hair. And when he looks up at you with those big soft eyes, you can't help but smile and say, "How's it going, kid?" Coyote pups, they ain't cute. They are mean. They sound mean, they act mean, and fellers, they are mean. They just are awful. They've got two jaws full of teeth that are as sharp as needles, and their idea of good, clean fun is to slip up behind somebody and bite the heck out of their tail. As a rule, I'm a pretty good sport. I was a kid once myself, don't you know? And I got into my share of mischief, but I can't get used to these people biting my tail. I mean, there's something kind of special, private about a guy's tail. If he's got any pride at all, he tries to keep it nice, and he's a little fussy about scabs and bald spots and tooth marks and slobber and all that stuff. What I'm saying is that my tail ain't a play toy. But these kids, they'll sneak up behind me and sink their little teeth into my tail. First time I just growled at them. "Hey, y'all, get on now, get out of here." It didn't work. Coyotes are a little slow about taking a hint. They came back and did it again, so I took a sterner measure. Cuffed one of them. Know what he did then? He bit me on the paw. Well, I wasn't going to take that stuff off a darn kid, so I bit him on the scruff of the neck, and he somehow worked his way around and got hold of my left ear. That got me all inflamed. Don't you see? And I put the boy on the ground and was spanking some manners into him when his mama walked up. "You brute! Leave my boy alone!" Huh! And she slapped me across the mouth. "There, bully!" I suppose I shouldn't have slapped her back, but I did. Whop! Right across the nose. "Maybe you can teach that boy of yours some manners." Whop! Chicken dog! Whop! Wild hag. She burst into tears and went bawling off to her husband, saying I just was an animal and had beat up her dang kid and called her a wild hag. Turned out it was Scrunch's woman, and here he came, all humped up, hair raised, yellow eyes flaming. I had taken about all I wanted off Scrunch and his family, and I was ready to go into combat. But Missy and her father jumped in between us and averted the Civil War. But the incident didn't do much to improve the relations between me and Missy's brother. I had a feeling that sooner or later we were going to have a showdown. Funny thing about all this, them coyotes didn't mind chewing on each other. I mean, they were fighting all the time. But when I tried, they didn't like it. Made me think that no matter how long I stayed there, they would always think of me as an outsider. Anyway, I was sitting on the ledge by myself, away from the noise, when Missy came up beside me. She nuzzled me with her nose and ran her claws down my backbone. She knew I liked that. "Something wrong? Honk looks sad." "Oh, it's nothing. Just wanted to be alone, I guess." "Not enjoy other coyote?" Well, do you ever get tired of all the noise and the fighting and the yelling? She shook her head. That's happy sound. When coyote happy, make bunch noise. When we merry, we happy, make bunch noise too. I see. Yeah, well, I guess we have that to look forward to, don't we? When pup come, even more noise. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Hunk not be sad. Missy have something make Hunk feel good. We have feast, special food, just for Hunk. I followed her into the village. We went to her parents' den. They were sitting out in the front, and the old lady was pulling cockaburs out of the chief's tail. Missy asked her mother if she would prepare a special meal just for me. She said she would. She left and was gone for 10 or 15 minutes. I tried to make conversation with the old man, but it wasn't easy. He started talking about the old days and about the time he went up with a couple of rounds with the skunk. He seemed to think the story was hilarious. I thought it was moderately funny. The chief was still cackling at his own wonderful story when the old lady returned, dragging in something horribly stinking. I turned to Missy. What is that? Aged mutton. Aged whatten? She nodded and smiled. Special feast, make Hunk forget sadness. Aged mutton. No doubt it had been buried for a while. It was green, dotted here and there with white spots, which turned out to be maggots. The smell alone would have taken a paint off the corral fence. The taste of such rot was too horrible to imagine. The old lady dragged it up and dropped it right at my feet. When she smiled, she looked as awful as the food, but she did look like her daughter, except that she had some teeth missing and she had some green stuff hanging from her lips. Meat aged for mini month, just right for Hunk now. The old man threw back his head, let out a howl, and dived into it. The old lady did the same. Missy did the same, and I took a deep breath, said a little prayer, and dove in too. Let's don't go into any details. It was bad. It was so bad that there were no words to describe it. I'll say no more. An hour later, I was lying down with my head over a cliff. I had emptied my body of entirely everything but blood and a few bones. Missy stood over me, stroked my brow. She had been very nice about it. They all had been, even my future mother-in-law. She had decided that I had drunk some brackish water, and that's what had made me sick. Hunk feel better now? Feel better, sort of. Hunk like coyote feast, oh boy? Oh boy. Now Hunk make ready for big raid? I raised my head up. Huh? That was the first I'd heard about the raid. This was going to be the big chance to prove to Missy's ma and pa that I was worthy of their daughter. Scrunch was putting the deal together, a raid on the ranch. And here is Hank after he ate the terrible aged mutton. See you tomorrow.